So, as the saying goes, we were born to turn a fairy tale into a farce for the masses. That is exactly the way we should interpret the recent blocking of popular online services across Russia. Naturally, this process is being handled by the good old Roskomnadzor agency, who immediately started getting cursed out by everyone and anyone. This includes even high-ranking officials like Dmitry Peskov, the Z military correspondent, and even Vyacheslav Volodin. He stated that we've come to this, now they're even blocking Telegram channels. It all actually started just the day before. It was widely reported that Roskomnadzor began removing banned and blocked websites from the National Domain Name System, also known as the NSDI. And the primary goal here is essentially to create a completely closed sovereign internet that can be fully mobilized at any time. This is expected to be finalized by the year 2028. The YouTube domain disappeared. WhatsApp, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, as well as 5 leading global media outlets, including the BBC, Current Time, Deutsche Welle, Radio Liberty, and the Moscow Times, have also been blocked. This unprecedented scale of blocking has never been recorded before, which of course immediately sparked waves of outrage. Particularly within the pro-war Z community, members are complaining that firstly, the spread of propaganda on Telegram is being severely restricted. This remains one of the most popular media platforms for spreading various Kremlin-backed propaganda narratives. This affects not only Russian users themselves, but also the propaganda resources that the Kremlin and its ipso factories have been churning out in large numbers since 2014. Now, there are already going to be certain problems with this. Well, not just certain problems, but very, very serious ones. Once again, both Peskov and Volodin have already spoken out. In general, Mizulina is having a meltdown. And most importantly, the Russian military forces, they are recording and releasing threatening videos, in which they warn that those who choose to sow the wind will reap the whirlwind. They say, you're not just blocking a TV channel for us, but our ability to communicate between units, which, against the backdrop of the Starlink terminal being blocked, has added even more of a headache. The situation has become so critical that in certain sectors of the front, Russian troops have started to retreat. This information is being spread in particular by a number of publications, citing, among others, Western analysts and Western intelligence agencies. Specifically, one NATO source stated that Ukrainian forces have advanced in the Zaporizhia region after Russian units were disconnected from the Starlink terminals. Leading Telegram channels had warned that problems with Starlink would cause more than just a headache. Specifically, 2 majors who wrote about this, one of the most popular and well-known pro-military channels in the ZEC community. This whole situation first began after Elon Musk, at the request of Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation Fedorov, actively began blocking Starlinks and terminals that had not been officially included in the whitelist. By the way, after that, a wave began. The SBU started issuing warnings, including sending SMS messages about what the Russian occupiers had done. They tried to bribe Ukrainian citizens. There's an option to add your own terminals, including those used by both the military and private individuals. Their installation data is entered. After that, once verified, this Starlink remains on the whitelist and can continue to operate. But since Russian military forces use Starlink in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, it's clear that Elon Musk's company perceives them as devices operating in Ukraine. And accordingly, Russian military personnel also gained access to satellite internet. So when these terminals started being blocked, Russian military and intelligence services began to massively send out offers, including through Telegram, naturally targeting Ukrainian citizens. They would say, take responsibility, register. If there's a need, register this terminal in your name and we'll pay you $400. This is a criminal act. Every single individual involved who agrees to this proposal will ultimately end up in prison. The Security Service of Ukraine has officially issued a stern and formal warning about this. In addition, as I have mentioned before, there has been a very sharp increase in purchases and requests for radios, since most other means of communication have been blocked. Moreover, there is also the matter of mobile communication networks. Russian military, but all of this is much more vulnerable to FPV drone strikes than Starlinks. Command and control of troops has become difficult on almost all fronts. This was reported by the Telegram channel VNK of the Russian Spring. The fighters write to us asking for help with equipment, radio relays, and radio stations. And besides that, of course, it's much easier to intercept radio communications with a walkie-talkie. Thus, it becomes significantly more straightforward for the Ukrainian military to obtain critical intelligence from the Russian occupiers. In addition, it is widely reported that, in particular, Ukrainian units have achieved notable success in the Zaporizhia region, even while the Russian army has almost completely occupied the area. Huliaipol, the last major settlement before Zaporizhia. Further on, essentially, there are only steppes and small settlements. In particular, Ukraine's assault troops reported today that they control part of the city of Huliaipol. It is not completely captured by the Russian occupiers, but they maintain control of the overwhelming majority of this settlement. Fierce fighting for it has been ongoing throughout the entire winter. However, this does not resolve the situation yet. The main problems are still related to the lack of reliable communications among the Russian occupiers, and as they say, all results and all successes can be nullified. A similar thing happened earlier with Kupiansk, which Putin had already declared captured by the Russian army, but then the Russian army was completely driven out of there. Currently, there are no more than 40 Russian soldiers left in the city. There are isolated groups hiding in basements and ruins who can be hunted down. And for months, not just weeks, but months, they have actually been in radio silence mode there. This complicates the task since they do not make contact. Their task is simply to lie low there, to hide in the hope that someday Russian occupation forces might be able to break through to them, but that is not happening. They are gradually being eliminated there. As Putin says, they are being picked off, and the city itself is completely in Kupiansk, under the control of Ukrainian defense forces. I'll repeat, it's just like that. A similar situation could eventually happen with Huliaipol, where the enemy is also experiencing catastrophic communication problems, and now with telegram channels and other things being blocked, this will also have its own